Bradley, Northwestern, and Winthrop. I look at that lineup and I think to myself, Auburn is, NCAA tournament number 1 in the country. Nobody of Auburn's stature in that tournament in Cancun. Sounds like Bruce just wanted a good trip to the beach.
Nice trip to Cancun.
Yeah.
Don't sweat a lot.
I hit Marlene up on email last night, the person that handles credentials for Auburn. I says, you got credentials open yet for Cancun? Next round, may want to go on that trip.
I'm in.
Yeah.
All right, Justin Hokanson. Is Hoke in? You going to go to Cancun with us, Hoke?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I tweeted yesterday. When they sent it out, I said, fine, I'll cover it.
Yeah, that's right. You've twisted my arm. Justin Hokanson, Auburn Live, part of On3 Sports, @_J Hokanson on Twitter. He's with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. A-Day is tomorrow down in Auburn, and I don't want to have to rehash history too much here, but in a lot of ways, I'm sure Brian Harsin had no idea if he would see this day, and will have to be relieved that at some point it's kind of finally here.
Yeah, that's true. It'll probably feel good for him and a lot of those players to go out there and play in front of fans, especially for Harsin. And you sort of got a little bit of that sense talking to the assistant coaches and the players this spring. I think we've talked about every assistant now and a good number of the players, and there is a little bit of different vibe in terms of you feel like maybe a little bit of a weight off their back from the off season. Now, once the fall hits, that weight's back on, but for now, I think they're just happy to get out there and have a spring practice and try to keep playing football.
I know Calzada's been limited, but does it feel like it's TJ Finley's team right now? At least does TJ Finley think it's his team?
Yes and yes. I would say right now, yeah. I think that he's doing enough to stay in that number 1 role. He's gotten first team reps throughout spring practice. Everything you hear, whether it's Brian Harsin, whether it's Eric Kiesau, whether it's Luke Deal, is that he shows really good leadership skills. He's a good teammate, a good guy. So he's doing all of those things, I think, in terms of the intangibles. And so for him, it's just a matter of getting better. He's just got to get more accurate. 54% obviously is not going to get it done. And so that's his big hurdle. But in terms of being a teammate and leading the team and operating the offense, which you hear so much from Harsin, is about operating, making the right decision, throw it away. That's a good thing if you threw it away and that was the right decision, then we're not going to ding you for that. So it's stuff like that they're just going to pay super close attention to. But like I said, I think this will go into the summer. Zach Calzada is going to be involved. Robbie Ashford's going to be involved. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on the quarterbacks tomorrow, and not just Finley, but Ashford, Gerner, as well, just to see what they're about. And do they show anything that makes you think they can push Finley? I would hope so, because Finley's not great. He's got to get there. So I would hope you see Ashford and Gerner doing some things that push Finley. That's the point.
Justin, I'm interested in your thoughts on this, because we know what happened in the off season or between the season and spring practice to Brian Harsin. And it seems like during spring, Auburn's been able to put that on the back burner. Is that a fair statement? And do you feel like inevitably when we crank it back up in the fall, it'll be a big storyline on ESPN and all the national media, SEC media days? Is that something you feel like is going to maybe fracture the Auburn fan base, the Auburn family, the locker room, or do you think it's pulling them together at this point?
I think at this point, if you're talking about the coaching staff and the team internally, I think they're banding together. I think a lot of the guys that left had things to say. They left. I think the guys that are there, for the most part, have bought in. You talk to coaches or players, they're in a much better shape internally about guys understanding expectations, understanding what Harsin's about, what they want to be on and off the field. So I think very much they're in a better place there, and you got to start somewhere. But obviously, fall comes and you lose to Penn State at home, and then what? So it's you still got to win games, and so yeah, if they get into the fall and it's another 500 type season, yeah, it's gonna be more of the same. You're gonna have fans that are gonna say, well, look what happened in the offseason. How do you want him to recruit? And you cut his legs out from under him, and there's gonna be people taking his side and saying you can't just. Now you got to give him time to do it because you put him in such a hole, and then there's going to be the other people saying, "See, we told you so." So yeah, you lose games in the fall. This is all going to come back up, and it's going to come back up at media days. That it won't be anything crazy, but there will be obviously questions from from the national media about it. But for now, internally, I think they're in a perfectly fine place, and I think they're actually in a better place than they were last spring in terms of expectations, living up to them, knowing what the standards are, and things like that.
Obviously, when Nick Saban got to Tuscaloosa, there was a big push to have that sold out or packed. No tickets were sold, I guess, or maybe they were, but a packed spring day game, and they had a couple of big crowds, and the crowds aren't like that anymore. It seems to me like this would have been a great opportunity for Auburn to make a push to get a huge crowd at Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday. Have you heard anything about a big push to get people there? Do you have a feeling of what kind of crowd I can expect at Jordan-Hare for this game?
I think last year was probably under 30. So I would think somewhere in there. I haven't heard of any kind of big push. Obviously, you have the Masters, which that's going to keep people away. People are going to DVR the Auburn spring game and watch the Masters and catch up on the Auburn game. That's going on as well. So no, I don't think there's going to be any big push, and I don't think, honestly, Harsin, that staff, they don't care.
Yeah.
That's just one of those things, and I don't mean that. That's one of those things that they're not overly concerned about anyway. If the less people, the less they got to worry about, I guess, having opinions on what does he call them, twidiots? So yeah. I don't think they care much who comes. I would say something like 30, maybe less.
Justin Hokanson is with us, Auburn Live, part of On3 Sports. You can follow him on Twitter @_J Hokanson. He is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. You write today that this might be, and these are big words here, the deepest tight end group in, did you say Auburn football history, recent history? How did you couch that?
That's a hard, I think you could make the argument just Auburn football history. If you look at what they have, it's hard to say at any given point they had as many quality bodies that have actually caught passes in games, touchdowns even, as they do right now.
Yeah, I guess I would look at, I don't know how you qualified Lesson-Kirkin. I think, he was more of an H-back, but you call it. C.J. Uzomah was great, but Auburn never threw to him. Yeah,
exactly. It was, total waste. But just in terms of the quantity of bodies, I've never seen, certainly in my lifetime, 5 guys that are a little different, but I think that'll all get playing time. 4 of those guys have got touchdowns within the last couple of seasons, and the one that doesn't is Shanker, who set the single season record for catches last year. So it's not a high bar given the last decade of Auburn tight ends outside of Lesson-Kirkin and C.J. Uzomah. They haven't had good ones. They haven't thrown. There's one year where I looked it up. They didn't even have a catch from a tight end one year, the whole year. So and I think the last 7 years they had as many catches as they did as a group last year. So they got a ways to go, but it's a really good group. It's a group that's going to lead this offense, I think, in a lot of ways, both from a maturity standpoint, a blocking standpoint of asking to help block for the running game, being a target for an unproven quarterback and receivers that you don't know what's there. I just think it's a really important group. And when you look at Shanker, who's played H-back, you look at Landon King, who's going to play a bunch of slot receiver. Brendan Frazier, who's 6'7", 6'8", Luke Deal, who just loves to block and mash people. They're all a little different, but they've all got qualities that can contribute. And I just think they're going to be a really important group in terms of what Auburn wants to do on offense and in the locker room. I just think they're one of those groups that it sounds funny to talk about the tight ends, but with what Auburn's trying to do, this pro style, getting the ball to them, blocking, and then their leadership, I just think they're a really important 4 or 5 guys right there to what Auburn's going to do on offense. And I think they're all really capable of going out there and producing if they're called upon.
And back to Landon King, this is a guy that's not built like a tight end. He's 6'5", 215 pounds. You've got a true weapon that can do a lot of different things in Tank, but could Landon King be one of those guys this year?
He could. It's hard to not look at Kyle Pitts and go, okay, how do we get the next Kyle Pitts? That guy was a tight end, but he played slot and played receiver. Landon King's that kind of body. 6'5". You look at him with the receivers, and he looks like a monster. And so he could be a matchup nightmare if you put him on the slot, and he's a tight end. If he maybe motions out and he's against a linebacker or a safety, it's going to be a tough cover. But he's just got to get better. He's still young and raw, catching the ball, running routes. He's got a ways to develop, but he's got time to do that. And he's one of those guys that you look at and go, depending on his development, he's a guy that could elevate the offense. You look at maybe somebody like Jason Jones, that defensive tackle from Oregon on the other side. There's just guys that you're like, they've got the body, they got the physical attributes. If they can elevate their game and develop a little bit, they can really add a nice element to that offense. And Landon King is definitely one of those guys.
I'll go back to the 2009 roster. Tommy Trott, Lutz was there, and then the very athletic 290-pound tackle Andrew McCain from Briarwood. I mean, that kid could have played tight end if they just gave him a shot, right? Let that guy play.
He started a tackle. Yeah, it was a good tackle too.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. How about
that year with Cole Bennett? Cole Bennett was there one year when you had Cole Bennett and Trott and some different guys.
Look, I remember when I was a kid, you had Walter Reeves and Frank Thomas on the same team. You remember Walter Reeves, that big Auburn tight end? Pat Dye throw to him at the most opportune time. Walter Reeves in the end zone.
I was just trying to do.
Is Lawyer Tillman the greatest tight end in Auburn history?
I would say so, Hoke. I think Lawyer Tillman's probably the best tight end.
I had him at wide receiver.
No, he was tight end.
Lawyer Tillman would qualify as a tight end.
I didn't watch. That was a little before my time watching. I always thought of him as a receiver. Yeah. I always thought of him as a receiver, but was he a tight end?
I think he was tight end.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's like Ozzie Newsome. Was Ozzie Newsome a tight end?
He was a wide receiver at Alabama. He was a tight end at.
Lawyer Tillman was tight end.
I've always thought of him as a tight end. I'll see where Auburn listed him. I'll pull up the roster.
That's a pretty tough one to beat.
All right.
Although Lutz,
hey, they used to play the Iron Bowl. Hope they used to play the Iron Bowl in Birmingham.
I went to a couple.
Yeah.
I went to two.
No, Lawyer Tillman was there. You don't remember it. All right, that's Justin Hokanson, man. Thanks for being with us. I was just trying to work Andrew McCain in the conversation. He occasionally listens and watches, so he is one of the best guys. One of the best.
They list Lawyer Tillman as a wide receiver. I always thought of him as
you and I are wrong, bro.
Well, I mean, 6'4", 224. That ain't a wide receiver in the 80s, my friend. That's tight end.
Yeah, that's tight end. Yeah.
How many tight end reverses win the game? Tillman.
That was not the Tillman play. That was in the back of the end zone.
That was Georgia Tech.
Yeah, Georgia Tech. Yeah. All right, Hoke, thank you. Enjoy the A-Day. Enjoy the Masters. Enjoy life. We'll see you.
See you, man.
Thanks. All right, what a wrap-up that was.
Didn't Tillman come around on reverse, too?
He did, and then Auburn tried to run it again in the 90 Iron Bowl, and I can't remember the tight end that fumbled. There was a tight end that fumbled. That was a big play in that game. Hokanson on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.